Welcome to Abridged, a podcast on everything Bracebridge, with your host, me, Mayor Rick Maloney. I'm joined with my guest today, who I'm going to have for the full half hour of Abridged podcast, James Steele, Commissioner of Engineering Public Works for the District of Muskoka. James, welcome to Abridged.
Thanks for letting me join you.
Well, it's been a busy winter. It's been a busy couple of weeks. Let's talk about the most recent event, which is the emergency that the district municipality declared a couple weeks ago with regards to the ice storm. Where are we at? What initiated the emergency declaration? And what are we looking at in terms of recovery? And that's a lot of questions there, but just start us off about the emergency and why we declared an emergency and where we're at right now.
Yeah, so around the end of March, we saw weather coming in, a significant weather system, risks of ice storms. And so actually the planning for the emergency happened well before the emergency. We set up meetings with the area municipalities and the roads crews to make sure we were all on point for whatever was to come. Saturday came and we saw a significant storm event, but also a lot of ice accretion on trees and branches. And someone reported to me that around their house, they had about an inch of ice accumulated on the trees. And so as you would expect, that all that extra weight brought down a whole pile of branches, which inevitably brought down trees and then brought down power lines and a significant power outage across the district. And really that was, between that and accessibility of roads, was really, I think, the trigger that that brought the district to the point where we declared an emergency.
So for listeners, district roads are connecting roads to communities, aren't they? And that's those are important linkages for people to evacuate if they need to evacuate. Certainly for emergency resources to access. And I'm sure, as I understand, many of our district roads were hit pretty hard. In the Bracebridge area, Fraserburg Road, a district road, was hit pretty hard. Tell us a little bit about some of the damage that was incurred on our road networks.
Yeah, so substantial trees down, and then to make it even more complicated, there was utility lines and hydro lines intermixed with those trees down. So it required a significant coordinated effort because our crews aren't qualified to remove hydro, for example, to make sure that they're safe, but also that's just sort of the protocols in place. And so we worked closely with the hydro providers, Lakeland, particularly on the Bracebridge, but also with Alexicon and Gravenhurst and Hydro One throughout the rest of the district, and really kicked off that coordinated effort to start restoring service to folks, but also give them access to things like emergency services and to refuel generators and that sort of thing. And so that was our real big push at the beginning of the event, is to try to gain as much access as possible. And one of the other things that we had prepared for is we had already reached out to a number of contractors to come in and provide that sort of immediate support. So I think it was as of the Monday, we had 4 or 5 external contractor crews working in coordination with the area municipalities and their public works crews, really to start getting the work done that needed to be completed.
And a real coordinated effort, as you pointed out, folks and generally in the rural area of our community have that 72-hour preparedness and are able to navigate through a day or two or maybe 3 days of outages. But once we hit that, past the 72-hour mark, it was clear that we needed to get out and check on folks. And certainly there was a coordinated effort with the emergency control group of the District of Muskoka and the town of Bracebridge to marshal up the use of our firefighters, EMS, and others. Maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think with that, definitely a great partnership and collaboration with the emergency services at the local municipality level, but also our paramedic services at the district level, focused on finding out folks that needed assistance and getting them access, but also our social services group, our community services group, were actually proactively reaching out to folks that they knew were engaged with their programs previously, perhaps vulnerable populations. And so it was really an effort to try to connect with folks to make sure that they were okay and they had what they needed, and let them know that not only were we there to support them, but also work was happening in the back end to really restore service as quickly as possible.
So where are we at now?
So the good news is that for the most part, well, I know all district roads are fully accessible. That happened middle of last week, and debris cleanup continues on the sides of the roads. Area municipalities, as I understand, the last update was all of their roads are accessible, with the exception of seasonal roads, which just aren't accessible now,
Hmm.
anyways. And then there's still some private roads that folks are, you know, they'll have to encounter those when
Hmm.
they
Yeah.
arrive. And so, I think overall we're in good shape. And then from a hydro perspective, I think the last update was, there's still folks that are without hydro, but they're mostly limited to remote properties, island properties, where it's just not safe to get to them yet. And the hope is that those folks, either understanding they're in a more precarious position, have longer stores to support themselves, or they're just simply not there because it's not accessible through the winter.
Hmm.
And so, so working closely with the hydro utilities really resulted in a positive outcome for the event. But yeah, I think we're still on the road to recovery. And I said to someone the other day that the emergency is fine, and that we made our way through it. But the recovery is going to be a lot longer and
Hmm.
a lot more demanding on
Absolutely.
resources and staff and that sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. This storm was described as large or larger than the '98 ice storm that went through the Ottawa Kingston area, Eastern Ontario. Right now, the emergency declaration has been lifted. That doesn't mean that there's still not some, as you pointed out, some recovery efforts. We still have the district has its support line still open for folks that need to reach out and are still encountering some challenges. You spoke on recovery. Tell us a little bit about what the district has done with the challenges that people have with the debris cleanup. I know initially the Rosewarren transfer station tipping fees have been waived. Maybe you can talk a little bit about what the district's offering in terms of support for recovery for folks.
Yeah, so I think that's a good question. So, as part of an emergency council meeting that happened the week before last, a working group was struck to help with debris management, and that group has authority to implement programs to support debris removal across the district. And so, to date, we've had the wave tipping fees at the Rosewarren transfer station, but all the transfer stations for that matter. We're at about $233,000 in wave fees, which is about 2,200 tons of wood and debris that's been dropped off. And so an extreme amount compared to our typical year, what we integrate into composting operations, about 1,300 tons. So almost double
Hmm.
this year. And that's only been, I don't know, 8 days or 10
Yes.
days or so.
Yeah.
And so we're still expecting that to continue. We have heard from members of the community that, they're not going to be available or here. And so one of the things that the working group is looking at is extending that time limit. And then the last thing is, or not the last thing, but the other part is we have an extended yard waste collection that starts next week. And so that will help support the folks in the community in more urbanized areas that typically that get leaf and yard waste, to help them get the material off their property if they don't have a trailer, if they don't have access to those tools. And it's an evolution. So I think that's an important aspect, is
Hmm.
that's what we have in place now. We have to be a little bit agile and make
Hmm.
adjustments as the programs roll out and we see if they're effective or not. We're doing it in a very structured and staged approach, because we also want to be respectful of taxpayer dollars, and so we don't want to sort of do the scorched earth approach, but it will take time, and adjustments will be made over time. And then the last thing is, for folks who don't have the ability to put the material out, like you mentioned, we have the hotline, and we're looking at finding volunteer groups to help support folks that need that help. And then again, we'll continue to evolve the programs.
So, if someone is curious on how they prepare their yard waste as a result of the storm, they can go to the district's website. And that is all the information is there in terms of what they need to do and how they need to present the stuff to the curb. And I think you pointed out that we're starting next week, the 21st, as the cleanup. Do you anticipate that we'll have to do double runs around some areas?
Yeah, so I think, well, we're going to have 3 full weeks of that
Yeah,
extended cleanup, and so we're expecting that we're going to have to hit areas a number of
yeah,
times, and then on top of that, we have the normal yard waste collection, which is the following 2 weeks.
yeah.
So really, over a span of 5 weeks, we're hoping we catch the vast majority, and that really in the end there'd just be a small amount that's left at the curb, and then we'll work likely close with the area municipal partners to sort of get that final cleanup completed.
And for seasonal residents that may not be captured in the kind of advanced yard pickup and things like that, is there any opportunity for them at the transfer station to get some relief?
Yeah, and so one of the things we're going to talk about, there's a working group meeting this afternoon. One of the things that I'm going to propose is extending that completion of the April 30th date to a longer date
Mm-hmm.
to not only give folks more time because it's been a lot more material, but also capture those folks that are perhaps won't come up till May, and so to make sure that they have the ability to drop off material at the transfer stations as well.
Well, James, so thank you for the update on the significant weather event, the emergency declaration on the ice storm. I know that certainly folks have been very appreciative of the district's response and certainly the local level response, and wanted to reach out to you and thank you and all your staff for the effort that they put in over the last several weeks. It's been trying, but certainly very well dealt with in terms of our response. So appreciate that.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate the community's efforts to make light work of a huge event by everyone contributing.
Great. We'll be back in a second to talk about another topic.
Excellent.
Well, I'm back with my guest, Commissioner James Steele of Engineering and Public Works for the District of Muskoka. James, to add to a very interesting winter, we had a challenge with the Silver Bridge. What happened with the Silver Bridge?
Yeah, so thanks for that, and I think one of the things that's interesting with infrastructure, and especially district infrastructure, is some of it's getting older. This was built in the 1920s, this bridge, and so it's lived a long lifespan. And so really, what happened was actually the town of Bracebridge Public Works crew noticed something different when they were plowing the sidewalk. And the real value in that collaboration is that they saw something, it said something,
Mm-hmm.
raised the issue to our engineering team. We had someone go out and do an immediate assessment of the bridge, and recognize that one of the supports had shifted over the winter, and then we closed the bridge. Now,
So that that closure, obviously, it was very clear to us or to engineers that inspected it that something significant happened. Do we know what significant event happened?
yeah, so we don't know exactly what happened. I think there's a number of suspicions. I think one of the things that's happened over time is just the way the bridge was constructed. There's some parts that you can't visually inspect from the outside, and so what we think has happened is some of the sections of steel have corroded over time, and so nothing that's obvious on the outside, but it was something happening on the inside of the bridge and the structure, and so it just didn't have enough capacity left over to fully support the bridge and the traffic going over it. And so we've engaged our consultant to, number one, verify the current state that it's in to make sure that it's safe. And the confirmation is, yes, all the members are within acceptable limits. We also had them do an analysis of all the sections, assuming that the bridge was back in place, and could that structure carry the same loads as it would be expected of any typical bridge in Ontario or through the Canadian Bridge Design Code. And so we've confirmed that as well. So that update will come at Engineering Public Works Committee next week. But I think it's important to know that the plan, the next step in the plan, now that we've done that sort of engineering component, is to look at how do we bring it back into service.
Yeah. So as I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, but on the falls side of the bridge has dropped 4 to 6 inches or whatever that measurement is towards the falls, and that would suggest, as you pointed out, at both abutment ends these plates have kind of given away or whatever. There's been some structural issue that couldn't be viewed. Is that generally kind of what's happened to the bridge?
Yep, that's precisely what's happened.
Okay. And so I know that every municipality across the province has a responsibility to maintain its infrastructure and regular maintenance, obviously, with everything that we own as a municipality. This bridge was actually for 2025 scheduled for some rehabilitation as well. It had been inspected back in the fall by the prospective contractors and engineers that were preparing for work for 2025. You noted that there was nothing visible found. Just maybe tell us about the district's kind of maintenance plan and what the district does with this bridge and all its bridges and infrastructure to make sure that they're safe for the public to travel on.
Yeah, and so a really interesting point is every bridge in Ontario is required to be inspected, have a full structural inspection every 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so what that is a professional engineer goes out, does a visual inspection to identify any potential defects, and gives the bridge a condition rating. And so this bridge was rated lower, so ready for rehabilitation, and that's why we had a capital project planned for 2025. It's unfortunate that this happened because we had a I think we had it in the plan, and that's why the engineers were there last year, is getting prepared for this contract. The benefit is that we already have money in the capital plan, and we're already moving forward with that. It's just a little bit more complicated now that this has happened. But I guess if I can say there's a a silver lining, is now we know before going into a contract that what the work needs to be done,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to entering a contract and then discovering something throughout that, which could create significantly more disruption. At least now we can fully plan for the rehabilitation versus starting a contract, closing the bridge, and then saying, "Oh, we found something and we need to take a step back."
Yeah, and I think the thing that is important is that the district certainly appreciates and recognizes the iconic nature of the Silver Bridge and its role it plays in our community. I'm wearing a logo branded bracebridge shirt today that has a Silver Bridge on it. So maybe just share with our listeners the district's approach to first goal is to absolutely do everything we can to make sure that the bridge still can be a viable structure in our community.
Yeah, I think so. So absolutely understand the importance of that bridge to the community, and like I said, that was our first part of the first steps of evaluating the structure. Is can we restore it to a condition that will allow full use of the bridge? Do we have to have a load restriction just based on the design standards from 1920? Might be a little bit different, different vehicles, that sort of thing. And so the first confirmation was to run that analysis to make sure that the structure could actually continue to support the loads at current code standards. And so that's the confirmation that we have from the engineers, is that all the members are suitable. Now it's just working through how do we bring it back up to its normal resting state.
Mm-hmm.
And then part of the project was to do sort of a refurbishment of the bridge. So cleaning and painting and that sort of thing. And so that's already on the plan. And like you said, the first priority here is to restore it to its current state. And that's been our focus so far.
And this is going to be a longer challenge, I guess, to work through. So, folks say, when is the bridge going to be open? We really don't know that, but we can absolutely say that this is not going to be, a project that in the next couple of months we'll be able to rectify and get it open. It's going to be a prolonged effort to evaluate and figure out a plan.
Yeah, I think what we'll see is the community will see work on the bridge this summer, with the intention of doing some more detailed investigation, some more assessment of the structures, and really developing a plan to restore the structure to full capacity. And so there'll be activity, but like you said, it'll probably span a couple of seasons, construction seasons. But we're still in the planning stages right now, and we'll definitely have more updates as we sort of dig in and do that more detailed investigation.
Well, I appreciate that. I know that certainly we'll invite you back to provide some updates on the bridge. Something that will feature conversation too is 118 and the efforts to make 118 along the retail corridor a bit safer. So that's something we can talk about in the future. But I do appreciate you coming in today and giving us a bit of an update on the Silver Bridge. And for our listeners, we'll be right back, and we're going to talk solid waste.
Thank you very much. That's everyone's favorite topic.
It is. Joined again with James Steele, the Commissioner of Engineering and Public Works for the District Municipality of Muskoka. James, solid waste. It's been a topic of discussion around the district table as long as I've been at district, because it is a challenge in today's day of ever increasing challenges on how we deal with waste. and that pitted against the ever reducing capacity we have for landfills and our desire not to open up more landfills. The district's taken some efforts in developing a waste management strategy and a master plan around that, and a waste reduction strategy that has brought forward some really, I guess, great initiatives that we're seeing some great results on. Talk a little bit about the master plan and then some of those waste strategies that we've incorporated over the last several months that we're seeing some great benefit on.
Yeah, thank you. Really important, really challenge, really exciting part of our time at the district right now is to really focus on the long-term waste management strategy for the district. And it's not, I like to think of it as not for me and our children, but it's really for our children's children.
Mm-hmm.
The master plan will help us understand sort of what waste management looks like for the next 30 years. And we've just completed phase one, which is really an assessment of the current state. So how does the system work? Where do we get materials from? What are the volumes of materials we're getting? And all those things get fed into phase two, where we're going to look at how do we best deliver that service? What service levels are expected from the community? But also, in the end, how are we going to manage those materials? And I've heard from a lot of people about, well, why are we even talking about a landfill? And I think an important distinction there is there are many different ways of disposing waste, things like energy from waste or incineration, um, exporting, which a lot of southern municipalities do,
Mm-hmm.
and they take it to the United States. Muskoka is always historically focused on disposing our waste or managing our waste in Muskoka.
Mm-hmm.
And so really looking at the extending the life of Rose Warren landfill as long as possible, because it's really expensive to build a new landfill, but it's also really challenging to site a new landfill
Mm-hmm.
because inevitably there's not many people that would say, please put a landfill in my backyard.
Exactly. And I think the province is really not supporting the addition of new landfills, as I understand, and encouraging municipalities to deal with their waste in-house. So we've had some initiatives. I guess the biggest change recently, a couple things. Producer responsible for recycling. And also, we brought on clear bags and expanded the organic program. So maybe you want to talk a little bit about what that means from the producer kind of responsibility for recycling. And then we can dovetail it into what we're doing right now with the clear bags and increased organics.
Yeah, I think it's important. So the move to producer responsibility really helps, and the focus on that is to make or allow producers to make the right choices because they have to be worried about end of life for their products.
Mm-hmm.
And so if anyone's been, to a coffee shop recently and you've noticed they change from black lids on coffee cups to white lids on coffee cups, that's because black plastic is really difficult to recycle.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, if you've gone to the grocery store and sometimes meat trays were on styrofoam or black plastic, now they're on clear plastic because that can be recycled. And so really that's the environmental benefit of producer responsibility, is that the producers are making choices to make sure that those materials can be recycled. And how that benefits municipalities is we historically were 50%, we were responsible for 50% of the cost of the recycling system. Now with producer responsibility, all those costs move over to the producers. And so what that means to ratepayers is you're no longer paying for that service that you had no control over, the end of life management. So there's a fiscal benefit. Now we reinvested those funds, some of those funds, not all of them, but some of those funds to expand organics collection and to improve our diversion rate. So diverting material that shouldn't be in the landfill to keep it out of the landfill.
Mm-hmm.
But some of those funds were applied to the tax levy, and residents saw that on their tax bill.
Mm-hmm. And some of those initiatives, well, first of all, it doesn't mean that the district doesn't still pick up recycling. The producers are not picking it up. We still have the responsibility to pick it up, and we kind of guess work with them under some kind of contract that we pick up the recycling and manage that, and they pay that portion, as you pointed out, for that service. And as you noted, we're reaping some benefit from that. Some of the other waste management strategies, that low-hanging fruit, and I think one of the biggest changes that folks are seeing is the clear plastic bags. Talk to us about why we went to clear plastic bags, and what are we seeing with that change?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question. And really what we do just to manage our system, to understand the nature of the material ending up in landfill, we do waste audits.
Mm-hmm.
And so what that is we pick specific routes across the district and take a sample set of the material that people are putting out. All those bags end up on a tipping room floor.
Mm-hmm.
They're torn apart and then they're sorted into the types of waste, organics, recycling, and then just things like that would end up in the garbage, including, and then household hazardous waste. And so based on those results, we did 4 audits last year, so each of the seasons, to make sure we got a good cross section with the same members of the community. And what we found is about 43% of material that was in the garbage bags, was organics. And so the Clear Bag program helps folks just take a last look at what they're putting in the garbage to say, is this the right thing, the right place for this material? And perhaps consider an alternative, whether it's blue box, whether it's the green bin, or whether it's, well, I shouldn't put those batteries in the garbage bag.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to make sure I take them to a household hazardous waste site. And so what we've seen through that program, and so we rolled out Clear Bags, and it really is asking people to do nothing different than we asked them to do before, except it's in a clear bag.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we've seen, the early results are, many municipalities have rolled out this program, and they have concerns about compliance and folks getting on board. The real positive results in Muskoka, after the first 4 weeks, we had 80% of people putting material out in clear bags. And so and we'll continue to work on the remaining 20%, but it's a real big achievement for us.
Absolutely.
To just get people to buy into that program.
Mm-hmm. And so what are we seeing in terms of results? I know you've been diligent, sending district councillors information on how we've been able to reduce the landfill tipping over this period of time, and also increase organics. So maybe you can give us a little bit of insight on those numbers.
Yeah, so we've seen a substantial reduction in the amount of garbage that's been disposed of. So a drop of about 40%.
Wow.
Year over year. So same week, previous year, or same month last year, year over year, about 40% reduction in garbage, and an increase of 50 to 60% on the organic side.
Mm-hmm.
And what that works out to is 150 tons of organic material in March was delivered through the green bin program.
Mm-hmm.
And that material, some, if not all of it, would have been in the garbage.
Mm-hmm. And so right off the hop, we're seeing great success. One of the initial concerns, and maybe some people still have some questions, is, I'm putting my, garbage in a clear bag. I'm concerned about privacy. I'm concerned about, what people will see. Right off the hop, I would say that our collectors are not, taking, snapshots and long visual inspections of garbage. They have a job to do, and they're picking stuff up, and they, can take that cursory look. But, for those persons that might be concerned about something in terms of privacy, what's there for them on that?
Yeah, so I think that's a good question, and an excellent point. The garbage collectors, the collection folks are, they're not really paying attention to what's in the bags. They're taking a quick glance. Does it look like it's got the appropriate stuff? And they're throwing it in the truck. For folks who are concerned about privacy, they have a number of options. Number one, you can still put your stuff in a garbage can. And so that is only exposed when the driver opens the lid and throws it in the truck. Alternatively, you're allowed 2 opaque privacy bags. So those are about the size of like a kit or of a milk bag.
Mm-hmm.
And you can put stuff in there that you don't want to be obvious as through the clear bags. And you're allowed 2 of those in each of your standard garbage bags.
Mm-hmm. And the organics program, tell us how that it comes full circle back to the community. And right now we have lots of organics with the recent event, ice storm event, when it comes to brush and things like that. But just tell us about that that circular kind of use of organics in our community.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. And Muskoka, we process our own organics. So we have composting operations at Rose Warren Landfill and also at Byers Road in Gravenhurst. And what we do is take those organics, we mix them with wood chips like we collected this couple months, or this month, and mix that with leaf and yard waste. And then, 2 or 3 months later, it's AA grade compost. And really the value is we make that available to the public. So for example, I think Bracebridge has it next week,
Mm-hmm.
available for the public to come pick it up. I think we're going to talk about whether you can take some wood chips too as part of that program. I mean, I think it's a great give back to the community. And so we're, it's still in process, and we do have some chipping operation happening next week. But I think the real value is that stuff. It doesn't take away any space in the landfill, and it's forever. It's perpetually available,
Yeah.
as opposed to once that space is gone in the landfill, it's gone forever.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, great. We just kind of touched the surface of waste management in our community. I guess the last plug for the district's waste management app that you can download. You want to share a little bit about that very quickly?
Yeah. So Google and Apple both have an app called the Muskoka Waste app, and so it'll give you you can put in your address. It'll give you your collection schedule. It gives you tips and tricks on where to put materials, but also gives information like the transfer station hours, and most importantly, when there's service disruptions, and we've seen a number of those this winter, you get a notification so that before you put your material out, that something's happening.
Yeah, you're getting your stuff to the curb on the day it's supposed to be picked up, and not getting buried in a pile of snow.
You got it.
James, thanks a lot. I really do appreciate you coming in today. I know there's going to be some more opportunities for us to have a chat. And thanks for coming in and joining me on Abridged.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity.
That's a wrap on this episode of Abridged. Thanks to my guests for taking the time to join me today. This podcast was produced in the Dr. Ted Joe recording studio at the Colson Family Bracebridge Library. Thanks for listening, and be sure to join me on our next episode where we talk everything Bracebridge.